The first thing we're going to do is, because I have 3 phases of the workflow, another thing that I want to mention before I start building this out is that as you're writing out your process, you might realize that maybe with your booked workflow, maybe you want to split that into 2 or 3 different workflows. If you have a huge process, because again, industries are going to be different. You might have this many, maybe you don't have that many actions in your booked workflow. Some people, usually in the wedding industry, might have 20, 30, 40 different actions. If you want to split this up into more than one phase, the booked workflow, you can definitely do that. So it's not where you have to stick to 3 and that's your limit. You can do as many phases as you want to, whatever makes the most sense to you. But in this example, I only have 3 phases, like what we've been talking about since the beginning: inquiry, booking, and booked. So what I'm going to do before I build any actions out is I'm going to go into Dubsado here, and I'm underneath the workflow section, and I'm actually going to put in those 3 different phases first, just so I have my framework before I start putting actions in on each one. So I'll go here and I'm going to click add workflow, and then I'm going to put in a wedding, and I'm just going to call this wedding inquiry. And what I'll do here, maybe I'll put in a little emoji here, a little bride emoji. You can put emojis in if you want to. It makes it a little bit more fun, especially when we talk about project statuses tomorrow. You'll see how fun emojis really are. So I'll just put a little emoji there for wedding inquiry, and I'll click next step. And then it's going to take you in here like you're going to build out the workflow, but I'm not going to build it out just yet. I'm going to go back to workflow. And so I have the first one here. Now I wish that I could just click duplicate and duplicate these out. But what you'll realize is the only way that you can duplicate a workflow is if you have things in there, which I don't. So instead of clicking duplicate, I'm just going to click add workflow, and I'm going to put in wedding booking, because this is going to be my booking workflow. So I'll add in my little emoji here again, and I have a little bride there. And then the last one that I'm going to do, so I have inquiry, booking, and then I'm going to do one more. And so I'll put in wedding, and we'll call this one booked. And I will add in again another emoji there, and next step. So now what I've done so far is I have my framework built out for these. I haven't put any steps in yet, but I've built out my 3 different phases. However many phases you have in your workflow, you'll want to put all of those in there first, just so that you have that framework. The other thing that I'm going to do, because again, I'm kind of anal about the way that things look, so I'm going to actually drag this up so they're actually in the proper order here. It's just something that I like to do. I don't like things to be out of order. I like everything to be inquiry, booking, booked. It's just kind of the way I am. So with the first workflow, let's jump in and we're going to build out the inquiry workflow. So when I'm looking at my inquiry workflow, I have 5 actions in here. So that should be what I have in my workflow when I'm done with this. And we have all of our actions and triggers over here already ready to go. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to put in a to-do to review the inquiry form and check for availability. So that's going to be what my task is. So when I open this workflow up here, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to build this out action by action. So when I click action here, let's go back to the process. We already determined yesterday exactly what I'm going to be putting in here. Create a to-do after the workflow started, and I want to do this immediately. So I'm just going to pop right back over here, and I already know my action, create to-do, and then we're going to do 0 days after the workflow started. So I'm just plugging this in now. The assigned user. So do I want this on my dashboard? Sure, we'll put that in there. So I'm going to assign this to myself so that way it goes onto my dashboard. And then the actual to-do is I'm going to say review the inquiry form and check for availability. And what I'm going to do here is a couple things. So on my lead capture form, they're putting in the date that they want for the wedding. They're putting in the date that they're requesting. So what I'm going to do to make this easier for me, because this is going to be a task. So what I'm going to do is I know that their name has already been captured on the lead capture form, and I know that I have the date that they're requesting, because they're actually mapping it. When they fill out the lead capture and they say, this is the date that I'm looking for, I have that date now in the system. So what I can do here is I can go in and I can just put in their name. And then I'm also going to put in Smart Field, project, and then project start date, because that's what it's getting mapped to. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to pop up. It's going to say review the inquiry form and check for availability, whoever the client is, and then the date that they're inquiring about. Now I don't need to go look at their lead capture form and try to figure out what date they put in there. I don't need to go to their project. It's automatically going to put that inside of this task. So it makes it a lot easier, a lot quicker. And do I want to put an email in there to have it send me an email? I'm actually not going to do that. And here's just kind of some really good advice. When someone fills out a lead capture form, you're going to get an automated email from Dubsado saying so-and-so filled out a lead capture. So I'm just thinking about back end on what's going to happen. If I want to do an email here, then it's going to send me an email that someone filled out my lead capture. And then immediately after, I'm going to get another email that says review the inquiry form and check for availability. I don't need two back-to-back emails every time someone inquires. So I'm just going to leave send email alone, because just for this task, I don't need back-to-back emails. So I'll just click apply there. And boom, we have our first action. Now let's build out the next one. So the next thing we have here is I want to email my consultation scheduler once I approve the lead, and I have send appointment scheduler after all previous actions are complete. So let's go ahead and build that in here. I'm going to do send appointment scheduler immediately after all previous actions are complete. Now, this is where if you don't have content, you're going to get into trouble. This is why on session 2, I stressed how important it is to have everything that you need that you listed out in your workflow, all of this material built in the system. Because now when I'm setting up this workflow, all I need to do is I need to grab my right scheduler, and I already have it in here, 30-minute consultation. And then the next thing that I need to do is with these canned emails that I built, I just need to plug in the right one. And here's my 30-minute consultation invitation email. And I plug that in. So automatically right here, I have thank you so much for inquiring about having me take pictures at your wedding. I'd love to chat with you more about your wedding so that I can get an idea of what you're wanting. Please click on the link below to book a consultation with me. And if you remember from what we talked about, this right here, I need that scheduler link in there because it's going to link to that scheduler. And once I have that in there, then it says once you've booked your appointment, you will be sent a questionnaire to fill out prior to our consultation. This will give us a base to work off of during our chat. Something that I want to say right here, and it will actually help you and your business. Giving clients instructions in emails on what's coming next and what they need to do is always a good option. A lot of people are setting up workflows and they're plugging in everything, and they just assume because they're going through and setting all this up and they're familiar with the workflow or how the process works, they don't realize that their client does not know what's coming up next or what to look out for. So the reason in this email that I said, once you've booked your appointment, you will be sent out a questionnaire to fill out. I'm letting the client know ahead of time, hey, once you do this, this is what's coming down the pipe. And there's nothing wrong with adding those kind of, here's what to watch for, here's what you need to do in the body of the email, instead of just saying, book a consultation with me and then just leaving it. Kind of fill them in on how this process is going to work in your emails. So boom, I have my email in there and I'll add that in. Already have my next action in there. Let's build out the next one. So the next one is going to be email the wedding pre-consultation questionnaire immediately after they book their consultation. So I have send form after appointment is scheduled. So I'm going to come in here, send form, And then the when section is going to be after an appointment is scheduled, and we're going to watch for that 30-minute consultation. And then all I'm going to do here, and I actually do want to check something out. Oh, I actually missed a step, but we'll finish this one here before we go back. So then I want to send this out after the consultation. And then the form that I'm sending is my wedding pre-consultation questionnaire. I already have it built. And then I need to grab my email, which I have my pre-consultation questionnaire email written there. And then it's just plugging it in. I'm looking forward to chatting with you soon. Before we have our consultation, I would love for you to fill out the questionnaire linked below so I can have a foundation to work off of during our chat, because that's the whole purpose of this questionnaire, is to have them fill this out so I know I have some information going into that consultation. And then my form link's in there and I'm ready to go, so we'll apply that. Now, one thing that I missed, if we go back, is that I put approve on this 30-minute scheduler. I forgot to add that in there actually. So let me go back to that second action here, and I'll just add that approval on there, and then we'll apply it. So now I have that approve button on there. Basically, once I mark this to do complete, it's going to allow me a chance to approve that scheduler to go out before I actually send it. So I have that in there. And then the fourth action here is to resend that questionnaire in a follow-up email if they haven't filled it out in 24 hours. So send form after form is not completed. So now I'm going to jump in here, send form, and then we're going to do 24 hours. I'm just going to say a day. It's the same thing, obviously, but I'll just say a day after they have not completed their form. So we're going to pop down here to after form is not completed. What form are we looking for? We talked about this last Friday. And so we're going to be watching that pre-consultation questionnaire because it's already in the workflow. So if they haven't filled out this form after a day, what do I want to send out? We want to send the pre-consultation questionnaire back out to them. And then it's going to ask what email we want to use. So if I have, which I should have in here, if I did my homework right, here it is right here. So I have my pre-consultation questionnaire follow-up email. And in here, it says, I'm looking forward to chatting with you soon. I noticed that you have not filled out the pre-consultation questionnaire. Before we have our consultation, I need for you to fill out the questionnaire below so I can have a foundation to work off of. And so it has a link to the form again in there. So I'm resending the form out, but the email is different. So in my canned emails, and as you can see here in the process, I also put a follow-up email here. So that way, this email that I'm originally sending out the questionnaire is one email, but I have a follow-up email that's just different. So that's two separate emails. And you saw that in the actual list of canned emails, how I have two different emails for that. So that's in there. And then the last thing is prep for the consultation, which is a task. So I have create to do before an appointment start time. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say create to do and 24 hours. So again, I'll just say a day, or I could do hours if I wanted to, but a day before an appointment start time. And we're going to watch that consultation. So basically I want a task to get created a day before their appointment. And I'm not going to put this on my dashboard. It's not really necessary for me. You could if you wanted to, but again, it's really up to personal preference there. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say prepare for consultation with, and then in here, I'm going to use smart fields again. So if I want to put in that smart field, it could say prepare for consultation with this person. So that's all I'm going to really put in that task, because then when it generates, it'll put in that person's name a day before their appointment. This, I do want to put an email on there because maybe I'm really mobile with this and I'm not paying attention. And this is going to send me an email 24 hours before their consultation saying, hey, you need to prep for this consultation. So that means I need to go review their questionnaire, maybe look at some more things so I have more context coming into that appointment. So boom. I add that in there, and now I have my inquiry workflow built. I don't have anything else that I need to do right now. We're going to talk about more tomorrow, but those 5 actions is literally now translated. We talked about translation yesterday, and that's how I got to all these actions and triggers. If there is anyone who's new in here, we kind of talked about breaking down why you're choosing these actions and triggers, but those 5 actions now are now literally in here as a workflow. So I'm now bringing that in. So we're done with inquiry. Now let's move on to the next one. So we'll go to workflow here. I have my inquiry workflow. Now we'll go to booking. So we'll open this up here, and now we'll knock out the booking workflow. So the very first thing that I have here is I want to send out my wedding package proposal, and the contract is attached there and the invoice. It's all attached in that action. I want to send out my proposal once their consultation has ended, but I want to put an approve button on there. So now what I'm using is send form and after appointment has ended. If you were here yesterday, you might remember that when I got to this action, I said, oh, I'm going to have to make some tweaks, but I'm going to write it out like it should be right now. And I'm going to show you. So I'm going to show you where you're going to run into problems here. So if I decide to do send form after appointment has ended, you all are probably, if you've been here with when we talked about actions and triggers, you probably already know what the issue is going to be. If I come in here and I say add action, and I say send form because I'm going to send out my proposal, then what's going to happen is I want to say immediately after the appointment has ended. But where I'm running into a problem now is that 30-minute consultation that I'm trying to watch for is not in this workflow anymore. So I can't watch that appointment that's over there. So between today and tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to work around that so it is the same logic, but it's not where you're directly watching that appointment. So what we're going to do here is instead of doing after appointment is ended, because I can't use that trigger because it's in the other workflow. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to do after workflow has started, or I could use after all previous actions are complete. We kind of talked about that last week and just using that as a default. But I don't like using the first action in a workflow as that because there is nothing above it. So I'm going to use after workflow has started just for this one. I am putting an approval on there. That is something that I have here is an approval. So I'm going to add that in. And now let's grab the proposal and the email. So when I click on this form here, I'm going to grab, also fun fact here, you can start typing in information, especially with canned emails. There are probably a lot of canned emails you have in there. If you just start typing, it will bring up that information. So instead of scrolling through everything, you can just type in there and it'll pop up. So here's my package proposal. And then I need the email that goes with it. So when I type in proposal, now you'll see I have all of these with the follow-ups. Everything's already in here. So I'll click proposal. And boom, here we go. So it was great chatting with you and going over what you are wanting for your wedding because I've already had that consultation. Attached is my proposal with the, attached is my proposal with all of my session prices. Feel free to choose from the package that works best for you. Once you are finished submitting the proposal, you will be taken to the contract to sign off on the terms and conditions. After signing, you will be taken to the invoice so you can make your 50% deposit. After that, you will be officially locked in. Again, I'm giving the client a heads up on how to navigate through that proposal, contract, and invoice. You can't assume that your clients are just going to pick up on everything every time. So by putting this in the email, you're giving them a heads up on once you submit this, this is going to happen next, then this is going to happen. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, form links in there, and I can add it in there. So now that that's in there, the next thing that I have here, We are going to talk about this contract follow-up. I'm not going to put it in quite yet because I don't want to do the start a workflow actions and all of that. I'm going to save that for tomorrow. So just for right now, I'm going to skip over that. I talked about it yesterday as far as allowing you to kind of watch if they haven't signed the contract. I'm actually going to do that tomorrow. So I'll show you how to get all of that taken care of. So let's skip over that just for right now. So resend the proposal in a follow-up email 3 days if they haven't filled out the form. So now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to do send form 3 days after the form has not been completed. And then which form are we watching for? Well, there's only one in this workflow. So we're going to say the proposal. We're watching to see if they fill out that proposal. If they don't, I want to send out the proposal again. Same idea with the questionnaire. We're resending it out to them, but the email is going to change now. Instead of using that same email, I'm going to use my proposal follow-up #1 email. This has a little bit different of a flavor to it. So it's just checking in. I wanted to see if you're still interested in working with me. Attached is my proposal. I kind of give them instructions still, and then there's the form link for them to access it. So same idea here, except the email is just changing a little bit. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing again, because if you look at my process, I want to redo it after a week if they haven't done it. So now I'm going to come in here, same idea, send form. We'll just say 1 week after the form has not been completed. We're watching that proposal again. Then we're going to resend the proposal out. Same idea. We're resending it. And then this last time, what I'm going to do is use my last follow-up email. So in this follow-up email here, it says, I just wanted to follow up with you one more time to see if you're still wanting to work with me. I would love to shoot your wedding for you. And then give them instructions again, just in case they haven't read anything. You can go through here, put the form link in, and then you have it right there. So something that I don't have in here, but I'm just going to add it in right now. I realize I didn't write it out in this particular process, but you'll see how you can just kind of act on the fly a little bit with some of the things if you want to. What I'm going to do is, if I send out this proposal to them, because they're a lead still, and we talked about archiving projects, if a proposal doesn't get filled out or if they don't fill out a questionnaire or something like that. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to add something in just to give it a little bit more streamlining capability, is if they don't fill out this proposal, I'm going to give them, let's say 10 days. So they're getting the last email at 1 week if they haven't filled it out. At 10 days, a week and a half, I'm just going to archive this project because I highly doubt they're going to be filling this out if I've sent them 3 emails with the proposal in it. So I'm going to click add action, and I'm just going to say archive project, and let's say 10 days after a form is not completed. And again, I'm just going to watch that proposal. And now once that's in there, I could change that later if I want to do 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You don't have to do 10 days, but now I have it set up where proposal goes out, they're going to get it again in 3 days, in a week. And then if they haven't filled it out after 10 days, let's just archive this lead because I'm assuming they're not going to be moving forward. So that's just another thing you can kind of do in there just to move it along so you don't have all of these dead leads sitting in your leads list. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow, about moving people out of the way if they're not wanting to move forward, or if they are moving forward, how do you move them down that timeline? We're going to talk about that all day tomorrow. So now I have my booking workflow done. I'm not going to worry about this last one here, lead becomes a job. That is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So I'm going to leave that alone for right now. And now let's move into the booked workflow. So now if we go to templates and workflow, we're going to end here on this last workflow and build out the booked workflow. So in my process, the very first thing that I have here is a task to do 3 different things. Something that can make your workflow a lot shorter is you can combine, if you wanted to put all of these things that you need to do together in one task, you can do that instead of creating 3 different tasks, because that could get tedious checking off all of these different tasks. You can combine them if you want to and just write it out all in one task. So what I'm going to do here, I think it was on Wednesday last week. We were talking about those hidden or secret to-dos, like update the project title, countersign the contract, set the portal password, all of those different things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make in my booked workflow one task that has everything in it. So if I go to create to do here, my trigger is going to be 0 days after the contract is signed by the client. You can use this one if you want to, this trigger, it will still work. Once you apply the workflow, it'll see that the contract is signed, and then it would commit those actions. So you can do this trigger if you want to. What I'm probably going to do, just because I don't like that the contract isn't in this workflow. It's kind of, again, just kind of a visual thing. I don't really want to use this because I know the contract is in the other workflow. It still works, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to do after the workflow is started, honestly, because once this workflow begins, their contract has already been signed in the previous workflow. So I could use after contract is signed, but in this particular scenario, I'm just going to kind of pull go a different direction, and I'm just going to say after workflow is started. Both of them work, but that's if you just want to make kind of an on-the-fly change if you really want to. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say change project title. I'm going to say, what was the other one that I have? Change project title, countersign the contract. So countersign the contract and set portal password for client name. And I'm just going to plug that in there so I have more context. So here, if we go down to smart field, I'm going to put in client name. So this is all in one task. I'm not going to make 3 different tasks: change project title, countersign the contract, set portal password. You could, but this just makes it a lot easier. You have one task, get all of this done in one shot. I'm not going to do an email reminder because I'm going to get an email that they've signed the contract. And when they pay their invoice, I'm also going to get another email. So when they do all of that, I would technically get 3 emails. So I'm just thinking about the automated emails that Dubsado is sending me through my notification section. And so if I wanted to do this, I could, but I don't really want 3 emails. So you can kind of see where you, based off of what you want to get received to you via email, you can kind of play it by ear on what you want. But this one, I'm just going to say no, because I don't want to get 3 different emails at that time. 2 is enough. So I'm just going to keep that with no email reminder. So I have my first task to do those 3 things. Then we have activate the client portal after the client has signed their contract. So we can do the exact same thing here. So we'll do activate portal, and I could say after contract is signed, I can do that. It's going to work. But again, just because I want to do it a little bit of a different way, I'm going to say after workflow started. So it's going to activate their portal at the same time. So I'm going to get the task to set their password, and it's going to activate the portal at the same time. So I'm doing all of this together. None of this is going out to the client. This is all behind the scenes things that are happening. So the last thing that the client has done up to this point is they've paid their 50% deposit. So now when we transition over here, now as you can see, all of these different things, we kind of talked about this yesterday, is I need to upload a lot of different things into their project. And I'm just realizing here that I have set the portal password and I also have it here. And I just realized that right now that I'm duplicating that. So what I need to do here is actually remove this particular task because I have it in there twice. I don't know how I didn't see that, but I'm just seeing it now. So let's just remove that there. So now the next thing I need to do is add a joint Pinterest board to the client portal. And that's a task I need to get done. And I have it set up where it's to do immediately after all previous actions. So in here, let's do create to do immediately after all previous actions. And I'm going to say upload a joint Pinterest board to client portal. This is something I'm going to have to do manually, but I'm going to show you how to do this on Thursday. A lot of people have been asking, how do you upload these things into the portal? When we talk about testing workflows on Thursday, I'm going to show you how to do all of these things. So upload a joint Pinterest board to the client portal. We'll click apply there. And then the next task that I have is add Google Drive folder to the client portal. If I wanted to add that in this same task, I probably could. So let's do that. You can kind of see how I'm just kind of going off road here. It's not really getting away from the process, but I'm kind of shortening some things. If I realize that I don't want another task to upload their Google Drive folder in there. So let's say upload a joint Pinterest board and Google Drive folder to the client portal. I'm just going to combine some of these things here instead of doing two separate tasks. So it's not really changing the process at all. I'm just figuring out some ways where maybe I want to combine a few things. That's all I'm doing there. So that is all combined there. I have kind of those two tasks in one thing. Then I want to upload my welcome wedding packet to the client portal as well. There's also a client portal guide that I want them to get. But if you remember what we talked about last week, you can't have, or we talked about this yesterday as well, you can't have two forms go out in the same email. So I can't send out my welcome wedding packet and my client portal guide in the same email. We talked about that a lot over the last week. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the welcome packet into their portal, and then I'm just going to send out my client portal guide in the email because I can only send out one form per email. So I'm just going to put the welcome packet in there, and then in the email, just the portal guide so they have access to that in the email. So here, upload the welcome wedding packet to the client portal. So if you remember when we were talking about workflow actions last Thursday, when I say send form, and I'm going to say immediately after all previous actions, that's my trigger there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my welcome packet, which I have right here already ready to go. But instead of sending it via email, I want to upload this to the portal. So here, instead of doing send email and apply to portal, we're going to do apply to portal only. That's the only thing we're going to do with it. So now in this action here, still nothing has gone out to the client yet. I'm changing the project title, and I just realized it says project tile. Not sure why that says that. So project title, countersign the contract, all of that. I'm activating the portal. It hasn't sent anything. I'm uploading a Pinterest board in a Google Drive folder. I'm uploading the welcome packet to the portal. I'm just stacking things right now in their portal. Now what I'm going to do is this next action is I want to email out my client portal guide. In this email, I'm going to give them information on how to log into their portal. So they haven't heard anything from me yet after they paid their invoice. All of this is behind the scenes. Now I'm going to come in here and say send form because I'm going to send out my client portal guide immediately after all previous actions. Let's look to see, I do have an approval button on there. So let's put an approval in here. Now let's grab my client portal guide. So the client portal guide, we have that. And then I need an email that goes with it. I spelled portal wrong. So it should be right there. So client portal invitation email. So in this email, let's take a look at this just so you can understand what I'm doing here. Thank you so much for paying your deposit. Remember, at this point in the process, they paid their invoice, but they haven't gotten anything else from me yet. So this first email that they're getting says, thank you so much for paying your deposit, because they haven't heard anything yet. Now the fun can begin. Below, I've added a link to your client portal. Once you log in, you will be able to review your proposal, contract, and invoice if you need to, as well as documentation that I will need from you moving forward. Here are the items to look out for once you log into your client portal. You have your welcome packet. You can access the link to our joint Pinterest board. You can sign into your joint Google Drive folder. All of these different things, I'm letting them know when you get into the portal, this is what you need to look out for, just so they have instructions on what to do. If you are having difficulty navigating the client portal, you can access a how-to guide by clicking on the link below. What are we doing here? We're linking up in this form link. We're linking the client portal guide. So that's going to be in the body of the email here, just in case they're having trouble getting into the portal. They can access it here, and that's going to help them get into the portal so they can access everything else. You don't want to put the client portal guide in the client portal because they might need that guide to log in. So you want to put it in the body of the email so they can have some help getting into the portal. So once that's in there, any other trouble, feel free to send me an email. So the client portal guide will be right there, and they'll be able to access that if they're having trouble getting into the portal. And so we'll add that in there. So here's what's happened. I've done all the prep work. Everything is uploaded into their portal. All of that's gone in. When I approve this, now it's going to send out their portal information. Actually, I just realized I messed up. I don't have my portal link and password in this email. That is shame on me. So what I need to do here is I need to actually edit this email. And this is going to be a preview for what we're actually going to cover on Thursday when it comes to testing your workflow and updating your workflows. So I'm going to go back into my canned email here, and let me grab my client portal invitation email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some space here. You're actually going to see me do this live. So I'm going to add in my portal link so they can access the portal. And then I'm going to put in a space here. Let's just create some space, and we'll put this in bold print password. And I'm going to put in the portal password smart field so it plugs in. I don't want that bold. And it's going to plug in that portal password there for the client. So let's save that. Once I have that in there, now let me go back to my workflow, and I'm going to update that email. So I'm going to come in here, go underneath the email. Let me grab my portal email again here. And now it has that new version in there. I completely forgot to put the portal information in there for them to access it. So now that's in there. So they'll be able to see the portal link, portal password. They can log in there, and we'll click apply. So now we have that in there. Now let's see what we have left. So we just have a couple more steps left, and then we'll be all wrapped up for the day. So now I want to send out my 3-month check-in email, and that's going to be 3 months before the project date. So now we're getting into project date triggers here. So my 3-month check-in email, there's nothing that goes with it. So we're going to use send email. There's no templates or anything, or forms or anything like that. So send email. We don't have months in here, so you would need to calculate the weeks. So we'll just say 4 times 3 months, so 12 weeks. So 12 weeks before the project start date. We don't have months. I wish we did, but you just have to do it based off of weeks. So 12 weeks before the project start date, that's going to go in there and send out. And then let me grab my 3-month check-in. Do I have that here? I should. 3-month wedding check-in. Boom. Perfect. So this one says, hey, we're 3 months away. I can't believe we're only 3 months away from your wedding. I know you're probably running around like crazy getting things set up, but I wanted to stop by and see if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns. So it's just a check-in email. I'm not sending out forms or anything like that. It's just a plain email. And that's why we're using send email, because we don't need to pick any templates in here. So it's just a plain text email. And that'll be 12 weeks before the project start date. And then I'm going to be sending out, so with all of my clients, I do a 2-month check-in where we're actually getting on the phone and talking. So what I need to do is send out my appointment scheduler, my 2-month check-in scheduler with them. So now I'll do send appointment scheduler this time, and 2 months. So we'll say 8 weeks before the wedding, just kind of keep it consistent, 8 weeks prior to the wedding. So before project start date. Now what I want to do here is I want to grab my 2-month check-in scheduler. It's already in there. And I should have my 2-month check-in scheduler email. So here we only have 2 months away from your wedding. Typically when I'm working with brides, I like to get on the phone 2 months before the wedding to see if there's anything else you need from me and go over some of the smaller details now that you have more of the final points ironed out. So here's the scheduler link for them so that they can book a call with me to jump on and talk about last minute details perhaps. So that's in the email there, and we'll click apply. Then I have a 1-month check-in email, and that's just a plain text email. There's nothing else that's in there. So we use send email, and then 4 weeks, because that'll be a month. So 4 weeks before their project start date. And now let's grab my 1-month check-in email, which is right here. Only a few weeks left. I'm looking forward to taking pictures at your wedding. I'm all set and ready to go on my end. But if you have anything you need to chat about, just send me an email or send me a text, and I just put a fake number in there. See you soon. So this is just a plain 1-month email that's going to go out to them 4 weeks before their wedding. And then I have a review questionnaire that's going to go out a week after their project is over. So a week after their wedding is over. So I'm going to come in here. Since I'm sending out a questionnaire, we're going to use send form. So that way we're actually picking the form. So 1 week after the project end date. So now we're on the other side of that wedding. 1 week after the project end date, I'm going to grab my review questionnaire. So here's my wedding review questionnaire. And then I should have my review questionnaire email. So that's in there now. I had an amazing time at your wedding. Everything was amazing. You looked gorgeous. And I think the pictures are going to turn out really nicely. So I have all this in there. It would be great if you could fill out my review survey below. That will give me a good idea of things I did well. So I'm just kind of putting some email in there. I'm not really great at copy. So this is just, stuff that I put in there. One thing that I do want to do though, just thinking about this email, is right now I have it set to be automated. I don't have an approval button on there. So what could potentially happen? This goes out at 1 week. What if the wedding was a disaster? What if maybe one of the people said, no, I don't want to marry you, and they run out? So in my mind, what might actually be safer is if I just put an approve button on here. What if something happens and they cancel the wedding? What if there's all these things that could potentially happen? So just to save myself, I'm going to put a require approval on there. And I don't want to say that maybe she didn't look amazing. Maybe something crazy happened that I want to write in there that happened during the wedding. So all these things could potentially happen. So I'm just going to put an approve button on there just in case something happens, just to cover myself. And if everything's fine, I can approve it. If not, maybe I'll put some specifics in there and then send it. So that's going to be in there. And then I want to mail a thank you card a month after the project. So that's going to be 4 weeks after, and that's an actual task that I'm going to do. I'm going to create a task. So create to do, and we'll say 4 weeks after the project end date. So a month after, and we're going to say send a thank you card to, and I'm going to plug their name in there, same as usual. So put a name in there. The other thing I'm going to do, so I don't have to go try to find their address in their client profile information, is I'm going to put in project or actually client, and I'm going to go down to address. Now what's going to happen is, because I'm collecting their address on my lead capture form, so send a thank you card to this client at this address. Now I don't need to go find it. It's all going to be in the task that gets sent out. And what I want to do here is I actually want to send an email reminder to myself because I'm probably going to forget because I'm moving on to the next thing. So send a thank you card to this client at this address, and it'll pop up on my phone. So I can just do that right there. I could stop at a Walgreens, grab a card, and then send that out. So I'll just put that in there. And that's a task that I need to get done. And two more things: send the anniversary email 1 year after. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say send email, and we're going to say 1 year after the project end date. And I'm going to plug in my wedding anniversary email. Happy anniversary. I can't believe it's been a whole year since your wedding. I just wanted to see how you're doing. I hope everything is going amazing with your marriage. If you're interested in doing any anniversary pictures, I'm pitching myself here. Just let me know and I can send over some pricing. So now, because I also do anniversaries, what I'm doing is once they finish their wedding, why not plug in and say, hey, your anniversary is coming up or it's here. If you want to get pictures done for your anniversary, let me know. So I could do a year after the project end date if I wanted to. Maybe what I would want to do, let's make a little change on the fly here. What I'm actually going to say is I'm going to say 51 weeks after their project end date. Because what I want to do is this. I'm actually going to send this out a week before their anniversary. So that way, if they haven't started looking for anniversary photographers yet, they're going to get this email a week before their actual anniversary, and they might say, oh, that would be really sweet to do on our anniversary. So now I'm just plugging this in to get ahead of the curve. I'll put an approval button on there just to be safe. I don't necessarily need it, but let's just put it on there just in case my workload is crazy, things like that. So you can see where you can make some adjustments on the fly if you really want to. It is helpful to stick to the core of your process, but if you want to make a couple tweaks here and there, it's not really going to change anything. It's just going to maybe change the timing, or if you want to approve it before it goes out, all of these different things are possible here. So let's click apply, and that's in there. And then the very last thing that I want to do once everything else is done, we talked about archiving projects in detail on Thursday of last week. Now I want to say immediately after everything else is done, now I want to archive that project. So that is everything in my workflow. Here's a couple things that I want you to take away from this before I hop on here and answer some questions. Number one, you can see how easy it is to put this together if you have all of your content in here. If I'm going through and building this workflow out and I have all of these forms and emails and they're not in the system, it's going to be, I come in here, I realize I don't have that. I jump out, I have to write that. I come in here, I realize I don't have that form. I need to back out. That's why session 2 was so critical to this whole workflow process webinar, is because if you get your process written out and your content together, whenever I go in to build a workflow, I'm not building things randomly. I am building off of a blueprint. This is my blueprint here. So I'm not going in saying, oh, let me add in some random form. I'm building what I wrote out. Now, as my business grows, as I get bigger, as Dubsado adds in new features, maybe I revisit this workflow process and I add in some more things, but I'm sticking to the core here. And then later, if I want to update the workflow, which that's going to be our session on Friday, is talking about how you go in and make updates to your workflow. But as I go through here, now I can make some updates in here if I want to. I could change some emails around, add some to-dos. Once I run this enough and I get familiar with it, maybe I don't need this task up here to change the project title, countersign the contract. Maybe it becomes second nature to me, so I don't need this to do anymore. That's what ends up happening with your workflow, is you can start to make some tweaks here and there. So now I have my workflow done. If I get a new client, I could run this on them if I wanted to, but there are some things else that I want to add to this workflow, which is going to be our session tomorrow. And to be completely transparent, tomorrow is my favorite topic to talk about, which is project statuses and adding those into the workflow. So tomorrow we'll talk about how you can actually make this even more automated than it already is right now. We're going to kind of take this to a 2.0 level. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, and then how to really streamline it so that everything flows together. Because as you can kind of see here with these 3 workflows, once they get through with this, how do they get to that booking workflow? And then once they get through here, how do they get to that next one? So tomorrow we're going to talk about adding in all of the start a workflows. We're going to talk about project status changes, adding tags, all of that stuff that makes this workflow even more advanced. But just for the sake of time, I can't do all of that in one webinar, as you can kind of tell with the time here. So this is just to kind of get you started and get your base template. Then we're going to take it up a notch tomorrow.